Run. Run. Just go. Don't worry about me.
That's what he said, and I ran. I don't know how long I kept running that night, but I've never run that far in my life. Then suddenly, I saw a light in the distance. I ran toward it, thinking maybe I'd be safe. But when I got closer, I realized it wasn't a house. It was a cremation ground. A body was burning, and there was no one around. And then, a terrifying scream came from the forest behind me. And in that moment, the half-burnt body sat up. I tried to run, but I couldn't move. And then, it grabbed my throat. My name is Palash. I'm from Bangladesh, and I'm writing this for the very first time. If I make any mistakes, I hope you'll forgive me. But let me go back to the incident, because that night still haunts me to this day. If you really want to know what happened, then listen. That day, my friends and I decided that we would go somewhere far away to fish, at night. Fishing at night has a different kind of thrill, especially because no one disturbs you, and you can catch a lot more fish. There were 4 of us: Rana, Rokon, Sajan, and me, Palash. We were all second-year intermediate students, and we had just gotten 2 weeks off from college, so we came back to our village homes. Our houses were all in the same village, so as planned, after 8 o'clock at night, we all got ready to go fishing together. 2 of us carried nets. One brought the bait, another carried the fish bag and a light. Just as we had planned, we gathered all our equipment and started walking toward a canal about 2.5 kilometers away from the village. The canal was called Dakobe Canal, a very old place where people often go fishing. That day, too, many people had come there, but we decided not to go where everyone else was fishing. Instead, we chose to go in the opposite direction, because hardly anyone goes that way, and that meant a higher chance of catching more fish. Since there were 4 of us, we were sure we wouldn't be coming back with just a small catch. So without overthinking anything, we moved forward with excitement. After walking for about 10 minutes, we finally reached the spot we had in mind. And just as we expected, there was no one there. We were overjoyed, thinking that tonight we were going to catch a lot of fish. Among us, Rokon Pai was the best at fishing, so we handed him one of the nets. I took the bait, and Rana helped with the other net, and we started fishing. Just as we had hoped, we were catching fish quite easily. Within a short time, we caught a lot of fish. But let me tell you something. About 200 to 300 meters ahead of where we were fishing, there was a dense forest. Maybe that's why no one usually came this far. And since we stayed outside the village for our studies, we didn't really know much about that forest either. Still, as we kept fishing, we slowly started moving closer toward it. And the closer we got to the forest, the bigger the fish became, and the more we caught. When we got near the edge of the forest, Sajan suddenly said he needed to go to the bathroom. He told us he was going inside the forest for a moment and asked us to wait there. We told him not to take too long. He nodded, and then walked into the darkness of the forest. The 3 of us stayed back and focused on fishing. Time passed. Quite a bit of time, actually, but Sajan didn't return. We started calling his name, again and again, but there was no response, no sound at all. After some more time, we finally saw him walking back toward us from the direction of the forest. We asked him why he took so long, and whether he didn't hear us calling him. He simply said, "I'm here now, come on, let's go." Then he told us that he had found a pond deep inside the forest, and that there were a lot of fish jumping there. I told him we had already caught plenty of fish where we were, and it was getting late, so we shouldn't go any further that night. But Sajan was stubborn. He insisted on going. And in the end, we all gave in. We started walking deeper into the forest. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we just kept walking. At one point, I asked him how much farther it was. He said, "Just a little more, almost there." After walking for a couple more minutes, we finally saw it. A large pond, right in the middle of the forest. Without thinking twice, we threw our nets into the water. And on the very first try, we caught a lot of fish. We were really happy. The fish there were big, much bigger than what we had caught before. Within a short time, our fish bag was completely full. We even thought we could come back here another day. With that in mind, we started packing everything. While packing, I took a quick look inside the fish bag, and I saw that we had caught some really good fish, at least 4 to 5 kilograms in total.
Then we gathered everything and started walking back the way we came.
That's when I noticed something strange. Sajin wasn't talking much anymore, and he was walking behind all of us, silently. After a while, we came out of the forest and reached the canal again. Suddenly, Rana looked around and said, "Where's Sajin? I don't see him." I said maybe he was somewhere nearby. We waited. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even 15 minutes passed, but he didn't come back. So we started calling him again and slowly moved toward the forest to look for him. After a while, we saw Sajin coming toward us again. I got a little annoyed and asked if he was joking with us. He just said he had been busy with something. We didn't think too much about it and started walking again with the fish bag in Rokan's hand. But suddenly, Rokan stopped. He said, "Why does the fish bag feel so light?" We told him to check it with the light. He took the light from me and looked inside the bag. And the moment he did, he screamed and collapsed to the ground. At the bottom of the bag, there were only a few small fish left, and right above them, the moment we saw a human skull. We heard a horrifying scream coming from deep inside the forest. After that, I don't remember anything clearly, but when we gathered the courage and looked inside the bag again, there was nothing there. Not a single fish, nothing at all. Even after everything that had just happened, I said we needed to leave immediately. We couldn't stay there any longer. Rana and I decided to carry Rokan on our shoulders, and Sajin would take the nets and the rest of the equipment. But the moment we turned to call Sajin, he was gone. There was no one there except the three of us, and by then, the fear had already started to grow inside us. I told them we should move forward a little. We could figure everything else out later. So we started walking again. But after only a short distance, we suddenly saw Sajin standing right in front of us. We were confused, frustrated, and a little angry. We asked him what his problem was, why he was acting like this, whether he was playing some kind of joke on us. But what he said next made everything even more confusing. He asked us where we had gone, why we had left him alone. He said he had told us to wait, that he was just going to the bathroom, and when he came back, we were gone. We were completely stunned. I told him, what was he talking about? He had just come back from the forest and told us to go deeper inside, to that pond, to catch more fish. Why was he saying all this now? Sajin looked irritated, almost angry, and told us not to joke with him, that his mood was already bad. At that moment, none of us could understand what was happening. It felt like something was terribly wrong. So I said, whatever had happened, we could think about it later. Right now, staying there even for a moment was not safe. We packed everything quickly and started walking back toward home. After some time, we reached the edge of the canal again. From there, we had to cross it. Rana and I stepped into the water, carrying Rokan between us, while Sajin moved ahead, guiding the way. But the moment we reached the middle of the canal, we heard it again. That same bone-chilling scream. The sound was so terrifying that I lost my balance and fell into the water. Rana also slipped while trying to hold Rokan, and the three of us fell into the canal. And then, Sajin suddenly shouted, "Brother, I'm going!" And without looking back, he started running toward the vast darkness of the canal. Seeing this, Rana also ran after him. Rokan, barely conscious, said to me, "Run, just go, don't worry about me." Meanwhile, the scream from the forest grew even louder, more terrifying, echoing through everything. With no other choice, I left Rokan there and started running. The water in the canal was only knee-deep, so he remained sitting there, in the water, while I ran. I ran, and I kept running. I don't know how long I had been running like that, but after a while, I noticed a faint light in the distance. In that darkness, I ran toward it, thinking it might be the light of a hurricane lamp. But as I got closer, when I opened my eyes, I found myself lying on a bed. My whole body was in severe pain. Someone was sitting beside me, but I couldn't recognize who it was. That person suddenly got up and walked out of the room. Then I saw my mother, my father, and my uncle entering the room. My uncle looked at me and asked, "How are you feeling now?" I said, "I'm okay, but my body hurts a lot." He told me to lie down and said he would bring a doctor. Then he left. My mother said she would arrange some food, and one by one, everyone left the room, and I just lay there. After eating a little, as usual, I lay down again. The doctor came and gave me some medicine and told me to try walking a little. Later that afternoon, with great difficulty, I stepped outside. And the moment I did, I was shocked. It felt like the entire house had changed overnight. Everything looked different, unfamiliar. I asked my mother, "What happened to me?" She looked at me quietly and said something that froze me completely. "You got out of bed today, after 2 months." 2 months? I couldn't believe it. She told me that 2 months ago, we had gone out to fish, and no one knew what had happened that night. Some people had found me unconscious in the morning and brought me back home. Since then, I had been lying in bed for 2 whole months. I was stunned. 2 months of my life? Just gone. I told my mother I was going out, even though it was painful to move, and I somehow made my way to Sajin's house. When I got there, I saw him sitting in the yard. The moment he saw me, he ran toward me and hugged me tightly, as if he couldn't believe I was standing there. He said, "So, you're back." I asked him how he was doing. He said he was better now. Then I told him, "Let's go visit Rana's house." He agreed. When we reached there, we found out that Rana wasn't home. He had gone to the market. His mother asked us to sit down, said she would arrange something for us to eat, and that Rana would be back soon. So we sat there, waiting. After a moment, I asked the question that had been weighing on my mind the whole time. "What about Rokan? How is he?" The moment I said his name, something changed in Sajin's face. What he said next was something I was never prepared to hear. He said, "Rokan is gone. He left us forever." For a moment, I couldn't process it, and then everything broke inside me. I couldn't control myself anymore. I burst into tears, crying uncontrollably, and told him, "Take me to him, please." Just then, as we stepped out of the house, we saw Rana returning. I ran to him, hugged him tightly, and with a trembling voice asked, "How did all this happen?" He said, "Come, I'll tell you everything." The three of us started walking toward the edge of the village, toward the graveyard. As we walked, Rana began to speak. He said that after Sajin ran that night, he also made his way back to the road, and when he got there, he saw Sajin already standing there. Then, when he looked back, he saw me running in the opposite direction, not toward them, but toward the cremation ground. Seeing this, he and Sajin rushed back to the village and brought a few people with them, and then followed the path I had taken. But they couldn't find Rokan anywhere behind me. When they reached the cremation ground, they saw me standing in front of a burning pyre, shaking uncontrollably. As they came closer, I suddenly collapsed to the ground. They handed me over to the villagers, and then went back to search for Rokan. While searching, they reached the edge of the canal, and that's where they found him. Rokan's lifeless body lying in the water, half-eaten, motionless. As Rana spoke, his voice started breaking. He said that seeing a friend in that condition, his heart felt like it would explode from the pain. He kept thinking, if only they had reached earlier, maybe they could have saved him.
By the time you finished telling me everything, we had already reached the graveyard. Rana pointed ahead and said,
There, that's where Rokon is. I looked and saw a freshly made grave. My friend was lying beneath it. I couldn't hold myself anymore. I broke down completely, crying uncontrollably, begging for forgiveness. Forgive me, my friend. Please forgive me. After that, 4 years have passed. Rana, Sajan, and I, we all moved on with our lives, finished college, and went our separate ways. We don't meet very often anymore, but we still keep in touch. We still check on each other. Even today, whenever I go back to the village, I remember my friend Rokon, and tears fill my eyes. What really happened to him that night, we never tried to find out. Maybe we didn't want to know. And so, we never looked into it again. If there are any mistakes in my writing, please forgive me. And with that, his story came to an end. My name is Selena, and at the time I'm talking about, I was living in Canada. This incident happened about 8 years ago, back when my married life had just begun. My husband had taken me to Canada because of his job at a company there, and when I left my country, there was a strange, warm feeling inside my heart, a mix of excitement and something I couldn't quite explain. But along with that, there was something else I carried with me, an old habit of mine, teaching, something I could never forget. In my life, teaching was never just a job. It was a kind of fulfillment, something deeper. You could call it my passion, my love, even a quiet joy that gave my life meaning. Even before my marriage, whenever the children from our neighborhood came to our house, I would sit them down in front of their books, and if they didn't want to study, I would still make them. Strangely, it never felt like a burden to me, never something annoying. Instead, it felt like happiness. The sparkle in their eyes, their curiosity to learn something new, their small, innocent questions, all of it made me feel alive. After moving abroad, about a year later, I suddenly realized that I was missing that feeling, that joy I used to have. It felt like something important was missing from my life. So without delaying any further, I decided to apply to a local English medium school. After seeing my interest and experience during the interview, the school authorities offered me a position as a teacher for a junior class. The children were around 5 to 6 years old, and everything about them felt almost magical. Their tiny hands, their soft voices as they recited poems, it all came together like a scene straight out of something heavenly. In those first few months, I didn't even realize how quickly time was passing. Back then, I didn't have any children of my own, but every morning, the moment I walked into the classroom and saw those sweet little faces smiling at me, my loneliness would disappear instantly. In a new country, in a completely new environment, those children slowly became my own. But then, one day, everything changed. A little girl entered my life, and meeting her changed the course of my life forever. That day started just like any other. It was a mild winter morning, and I was sitting by the window quietly organizing my classwork. Everything felt calm, normal, and then the principal walked into the staff room, bringing a little girl with her. There was something about that girl, something that immediately caught my attention. She looked at me with dull, lifeless eyes, as if the exhaustion of an entire lifetime had somehow settled on her young face. The principal said, "Selena, miss, this girl has just been admitted. Her name is Catherine. Please guide her. Help her settle in. She's a bit sensitive, and she'll be joining your class." I kept looking at her for a moment. Her long hair was neatly braided, and her eyes, they felt strange, as if they were hiding something deep, something I couldn't understand. Gently, I held her hand and led her into the classroom, seating her in an empty chair in the corner. Then I took out some toffees from my pocket and gave them to her. I always used to keep a few toffees with me, because with children, something as simple as that could bring a smile and make them easier to connect with. That's why I always carried them, just for them. She took the toffee from my hand, but didn't say a single word. I don't know why, but there was something in her gaze, something strangely gentle, something that pulled me in. There was no smile on her lips, and yet, it felt like she accepted me instantly. In the first few days, she remained very quiet. She didn't talk to anyone, not even once. While the other children in the class laughed, played, and made noise, she would quietly come and stand beside me, without saying a word. Slowly, I started trying to understand her. I spoke to her softly, told her small stories, tried to make her feel comfortable. But she would just look into my eyes, silently, as if she was searching for something. As time passed, a strange bond began to form between us. She would only talk to me, no one else. Even during school breaks, she never went outside. Wherever I was, she would sit there quietly.
I had a habit.
During breaks, I used to pray. And during that time, she would always stay near me. She would watch me closely as I performed ablution, as I spread the prayer mat, as I lowered my head in prostration. And then one day, she suddenly asked me, "Miss, what are you doing? I see you do this every day. What is it?" I was a little surprised, but I answered her gently. I told her, "I'm praying. It's called Salah. I'm a Muslim. You may not understand it yet." She simply nodded and quietly went back to her desk. But that day, I noticed something. While I was praying, she was staring at me in a very strange way, as if she was trying to understand something, or maybe feeling something deeper. And because of that, I couldn't focus properly. Something about her presence made me uneasy, as if there was a quiet tension in the air. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't concentrate. Somehow, I finished my prayer. And then, something even stranger happened. After I was done, without even realizing it, I softly recited the call to prayer, the azan, as if it came out of me on its own. Because deep inside, I felt a strange, unsettling feeling I couldn't explain. Normally, I never recite the call to prayer inside a classroom. But that day, it felt like something heavy, something invisible, had settled in the air around me, as if the only way to break through it was to call upon Allah through the azan. And the moment the sound of the azan left my lips, I noticed something. The girl, Catherine, suddenly trembled. She was standing by the window, facing away from me, but something about her didn't feel right. It felt like her shadow moved, separately, as if it had a life of its own. It was as though the shadow was turning toward me, even though she herself barely moved. Then she walked toward me, slowly, and in a low voice she said, "Miss, stop this." There was something cold in her tone. She said, "I won't say it a second time." I stood there, frozen. She continued, "You can study, that's fine, but why do you have to recite the azan?" And then, she started saying something in Arabic. Her back turned away from me, her voice calm, controlled, and disturbingly clear. Her pronunciation was perfect, flawless. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I couldn't explain it, but I knew, deep down, that behind that innocent face, there was something else, something hidden, something I didn't understand yet. Right after finishing the azan, I sat on the prayer mat, trying to focus again, trying to calm myself. The entire place felt unnaturally silent. Even the usually noisy school corridors were completely still, as if the world outside had paused. And then, a soft breeze moved the curtain near the window, just slightly. Light slipped in through the narrow gap, and yet, the air didn't feel warm. It felt cold, unnaturally cold. Suddenly, I felt like the air around me was getting heavier, as if the oxygen itself was fading away. It became harder to breathe. Each breath felt forced, strained. At first, I thought maybe it was just my imagination, but the very next moment, I felt it. A hand resting on my shoulder. It felt heavy, as if someone much bigger than me was standing right behind, placing their weight on me. My heart skipped, and in shock, I opened my eyes. And there she was, Catherine, standing right behind me. No, not just standing, staring directly at me. Her eyes, they were different. There was a stillness in them, something far deeper than a child's curiosity, something intense, something unsettling. The innocence that once lived in her gaze was gone. There was no softness, no warmth, only something dark, something that felt like old pain, or perhaps a hidden fire of resentment burning silently within her. Then her lips moved again. "What are you reading?" Her voice, it was flat, almost emotionless, yet it carried a strange vibration, something that didn't belong to a child at all. For a moment, I couldn't even respond, but somehow, trying to hide my fear, I spoke softly. "Go, sit back in your chair." But she didn't listen to me. Slowly, she raised her small hand and placed it on my right shoulder. And the moment her hand touched me, a freezing current rushed through every nerve in my body. I flinched. There was no softness in that touch, none of the warmth you would expect from a child. Instead, her hand felt unbelievably heavy, as if years of pain, suffering, and exhaustion had been buried inside it. It didn't feel like the hand of a child at all. It felt like the hand of a grown man, pressing down on my shoulder. I tried to move it away with both of my hands, but strangely, I couldn't. It didn't move even an inch. It felt like stone, lifeless, yet overpowering. And just then, the break ended. The familiar noise of the school returned, children laughing, running back into the classroom, voices echoing through the halls. And in the middle of all that chaos, the heavy hand slowly lifted from my shoulder. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. Catherine stood there, silently, looking straight at me. And then she gave a faint, mysterious smile before quietly returning to her seat. From that day on, something changed inside me. A deep fear began to grow whenever I looked at her. Every time our eyes met, a chill ran down my spine. Her gaze remained steady, but there was something cold in it, something filled with quiet anger. All I could think about was when the class would end, when I could leave, go home, and tell everything to my husband. When I finally did, he just laughed. He told me I was overthinking, that I was becoming too sensitive, that I should relax, that it was nothing. He brushed it off as if it were just a small, harmless thing. But I knew this wasn't my imagination. I knew something wasn't right. There was something in that girl's eyes, something you couldn't see directly, but you could feel, deep under your skin, like a silent tremor. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept waking up again and again, and every time I closed my eyes, I could feel that cold, heavy hand on my shoulder again, as if she was still there, right in the next room, watching me without blinking. The next morning, my mind was filled with hesitation. I couldn't decide whether I should go to school or not. I was afraid, truly afraid. But in the end, I forced myself to be strong and stepped out. When I reached the school, I saw that she was already there. She looked at me and smiled, completely normal, and in a calm voice said, "Good morning, miss." But even in that smile, there was something hidden, something cold, something that sent a quiet shiver through me. As I continued teaching, my eyes kept drifting back to her again and again, and it felt like she knew. She knew I was afraid of her. Every time our eyes met, she would give a faint smile and lower her gaze, as if she was playing with something unseen. There was a strange sense of pride in her expression, as if she already knew that she had some kind of control over me, that her shadow had already begun to spread over my life. When break time came, I decided that this time I would leave the classroom. As I stepped into the corridor, I ran into the principal. She looked surprised and asked, "Miss, where are you going? Don't you usually pray inside the classroom?" I hesitated for a moment, then replied softly that I had something to take care of outside. She looked at me gently and said, "Catherine has developed a strange kind of dependence on you. During breaks, she only stays with you. She doesn't talk to anyone else. Please stay with her." My face went pale. How could I tell her that I felt the most unsafe around that very child? And just then, I felt it again. Her presence. Right behind me. Slowly, she came closer and took my hand. That same cold, lifeless touch. Then she said softly, "Come, miss, let's go inside. I need to talk to you." The principal was still looking at me, but I couldn't say anything. I just followed the girl back into the classroom. And then, something changed again. As soon as we went inside, her behavior shifted completely. She became just like a normal child again, talking endlessly about small things, her lost pencil, her favorite storybooks, her favorite animals, even cartoon characters. Watching her, it felt almost impossible to believe that anything was wrong with her at all. Slowly, I started calming down. I even began to wonder, maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe I was imagining things. But deep inside, a question kept rising again and again. Can a 5 or 6-year-old child really understand someone like that? Can they really do something like this? And yet, there she was, sitting in front of me, with that same quiet, innocent smile on her face. I told her softly, "Go sit down and draw something. Use your favorite colors and make something beautiful today." She didn't say anything, just nodded quietly and went back to her desk. With a box of colored pencils in her hand, she began drawing in complete silence. I turned back to my prayer, made my intention, and began in the name of Allah. But today, there was no peace anywhere. Even before I could go into prostration, I felt something was wrong. It felt like something unseen, something unclean, was moving around me, as if an invisible layer had been wrapped around my entire being. The classroom, though full, felt unnaturally silent, and within that silence, there was a strange, heavy hum pressing against my ears. I tried to focus, tried to hold on to my faith, my lips trembling as I continued. But slowly, fear started to seep into my heart. A quiet fear, one without a name, without a shape. Even with my eyes closed, I could feel a wave of dread rising inside my chest. When I turned my head to the left to complete my prayer, I saw her still sitting at her desk, head lowered, drawing calmly. Everything looked normal, but something around her didn't feel right. It felt like something unseen was moving around her, something you couldn't see, only feel. I tried to calm myself, to push the fear away, and in my mind I began reciting Ayatul Kursi. Whenever I recite it, I feel strength, like my heart becomes steady. But today, it was the opposite. As I reached the middle of the verse, I suddenly felt someone standing extremely close to me, right beside my body. There was a coldness in the air, as if someone was spraying freezing air right next to my neck. I opened my eyes, and she was there, standing right in front of me. The same girl, Catherine. But something in her eyes had changed again. There was a different kind of light in them now, something I couldn't understand. Slowly, she stepped closer, lowered her face near my ear. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. And then she began reciting Ayatul Kursi, exactly from where I had stopped. her pronunciation, perfect. Not a single mistake. She was just a 5 or 6-year-old child, someone who shouldn't even know these verses, someone who likely had never even heard them before. And yet, she was reciting it. Flawlessly. Right there, inside the classroom. The final part of Ayatul Kursi, clear, precise, as if she had known it all her life. The room started to feel smaller, as if the walls were closing in on me. My legs went numb. I couldn't breathe properly. Somehow, gathering what little strength I had left, I stood up and ran out of the classroom. I ran straight to the principal's office, pushed the door open, and said, "We need to call Catherine's guardians right now. This is not normal. Something is wrong." My voice was shaking, my entire body soaked in sweat. As I spoke, I could see concern growing in the principal's eyes. She said, "All right, I'll talk to them. You need to rest for now." I couldn't stay there any longer. I took a half day and left the school. My head was spinning. It felt like I was trapped inside a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. That night, I developed a fever. My body went weak, almost lifeless. I stayed in bed for an entire week. And then, exactly 7 days later, I returned to school again.
And as soon as I arrived,
The principal called me into her office. The moment I entered the room, I saw a man sitting there. His eyes were filled with exhaustion and questions. This was Catherine's father. The principal introduced us, and we began to talk. The first thing I asked was about his wife, whether she had come with him. He let out a slow breath and said, "Ma'am, she passed away 2 years ago." I felt a sudden heaviness in my chest, and I offered him my condolences. Then, carefully, I asked him about his daughter, about whether she knew Arabic. He looked genuinely surprised. "No, my daughter doesn't know Arabic. She grew up here. No one in our family has ever learned it." That answer sent a chill through me. So I told him everything, every single detail. He listened, and slowly, his expression changed. I can't believe this. My daughter, reciting Ayatul Kursi? There was moisture in the corner of his eyes, as if he was beginning to realize that something about his daughter wasn't normal, yet even he couldn't fully understand what it was. And my fear only grew stronger. The way she had recited it, there was no trembling, no hesitation like a child who is afraid. Instead, there was a strange confidence, a stillness, as if those words had lived inside her for ages, as if she had spoken them long before this life, like something remembered, not learned. That fear, that shock, it shook both my body and my mind so deeply that for the next few days, I couldn't even return to school. It always felt like something was following me. Invisible, but always there. And when I finally gathered the courage to return, the moment I stepped into the classroom, Catherine ran straight toward me and threw her arms around my neck. Her small hands wrapped tightly around me, and she said, "Miss, where did you go?" My body went numb again. There was affection in her touch, yes, but at the same time, there was that same strange coldness, something that didn't melt the heart, but instead unsettled the mind. After that, a week passed quietly. Nothing unusual happened. She behaved normally. But then, something happened that completely broke me. It was a strange, silent afternoon. Sunlight was coming through the window into the classroom, but there was no warmth in it, only a lifeless stillness. Most of the students were on break. The classroom was nearly empty. Only she and I were there. She was sitting quietly in a corner, drawing with her colored pencils, her silence, once again, making me uneasy. Even at such a young age, there was a deep, tired look in her eyes, something that didn't belong to a child. I was sitting at my desk, checking notebooks, doing some routine work, trying to stay normal. And then, she stood up, walked slowly toward my table. That same expression on her face, calm, distant, unreadable. Her eyes, foggy, like something hidden behind them. Then she said, "Miss, I drew a picture of you. Would you like to see?" With a faint smile, I looked at the drawing. But the moment I saw it, the smile disappeared from my face. The picture was clearly me, sitting at a desk, wearing glasses, a scarf on my head, every detail perfectly drawn. But what terrified me the most was that I wasn't alone in that drawing. Right behind me, there was another figure, a shadow, human-like, with messy hair, an unclear face, its eyes hollow, almost invisible. The way it was drawn, it felt like I had no idea it was standing behind me, as if something had been there all along, covering me, trapping my existence beneath its shadow. I was stunned. My voice felt dry as I asked her, "Who is this? Who's standing behind me?" She lowered her head slightly and said, "That's you." Her answer made no sense. I said more firmly, "No, I'm sitting here in front. I'm asking about the person behind me." The moment I said that, something changed in her. She suddenly looked behind my chair, as if there really was something there, as if she could actually see it. Her gaze hardened, her lips stopped moving. There was no fear in her eyes, but something else, something restrained, something deeply unsettling. She didn't say a word, and somehow that silence felt far more terrifying than anything she could have said. This time, I spoke more sharply. "Why are you quiet? Who is that?" And at that exact moment, my chair suddenly jerked, as if someone had grabbed it from behind. The metal legs scraped harshly against the floor, dragging forward with a sharp, echoing sound. I jumped to my feet. My heart was pounding so loudly it felt like it could be heard outside. The classroom was empty, the air completely still, and the girl was just standing there, staring at me in a way that made my skin crawl. Slowly, I turned around to look behind me. There was no one there, nothing at all. And yet, in her eyes, there was no sadness, no confusion, only anger, pure, intense anger. Her face darkened, her expression changed completely, and then she looked away and said in a cold, almost masculine voice, "This is the first time you've spoken to me like this. If you ever do it again, you'll understand." I couldn't stand there anymore. My head started spinning, everything around me went dark, and I collapsed right there. When I opened my eyes, I was at home, lying on my own bed. Beside me, my husband was sitting, his face filled with concern, gently sprinkling water on my head. In a weak voice, I asked, "Am I home?" He gave a faint, relieved smile and said, "You collapsed at school. They called me. What happened to you?" With a trembling voice, I told him everything. The drawing, the shadow, the chair moving, the threat, all of it. As he listened, I could see the shock spreading across his face. He stayed silent for a moment, and then said, "Selena, you should leave this job. You can tell this isn't normal. This is something paranormal." But at that moment, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to leave everything behind. I told him, "I can't quit right now. I'll take some time off instead." The next day, I went to school and applied for a 1-month leave. I just wanted to stay away from everything, from all of it. After a month, when I finally returned to school, one of my colleagues told me something that made my chest tighten. You know, that girl hasn't come to school for the entire month. For a moment, I felt something break inside me. It felt like maybe that distance had been necessary for both of us. But that sense of relief didn't last very long. The very next day, she came back to school. She looked straight at me and said, "I'm sorry, I won't disturb you again. Just please don't take leave." There was something in her voice, almost like she was about to cry, a quiet plea, but I knew there was something else hidden beneath it, something deeper, something I couldn't fully see, but I could feel it flicker in her eyes. From that moment, I made a decision. I would never be alone with her again. I stopped praying in the classroom, and instead, I began using an old room in the corner of the building, a place that used to be the staff room, but was now abandoned. The room felt heavy, wrapped in an old, silent stillness. But every time I stood there to pray, I felt like someone was standing by the door, watching me, breathing softly behind my neck. I could hear faint footsteps, feel a slight pull in the air behind me, sometimes even a whisper, barely audible, and at times, that same cold, unfamiliar touch. But the most terrifying day was when I saw Catherine inside that room while I was praying. And yet, when I finished my prayer and turned my head, the room was empty. There was no one there. Panic took over me, and I ran straight back to the classroom. And there, I saw her, sitting quietly near my desk, drawing, just like always. The teacher I had left in charge was sitting there normally. Everything looked completely fine. I asked, "Catherine, were you here the whole time? Did you go to the staff room?" The other teacher replied calmly, "No, she hasn't moved from here even for a moment." My vision blurred. My mind went blank. If she was here the entire time, then who was there? Who was standing beside me? Who was touching me? Who was moving around me? At that moment, I felt trapped, caught between two realities. On one side, there was logic, the reality of my life, a woman living abroad, where finding a new job isn't easy. And on the other side, there was something deeper, something emotional, a connection I had built over time. But one thing was absolutely certain. Staying there was no longer safe. Day by day, something was slowly consuming my peace of mind. Something invisible. Something I couldn't fight. These thoughts kept trembling silently inside me. And just when I was struggling with all that confusion, something happened. Something that shattered every doubt I had left. That afternoon, I was in the staff room, praying. A soft sunlight filtered through outside. The children were out on break. The school felt strangely quiet, yet faint echoes of movement still lingered. As I lowered my head into prostration, suddenly, I heard it. At first, it sounded distant. Then it became clearer. Confused shouting, hurried footsteps, someone crying, chaos spreading all at once. I immediately finished my prayer, folded my prayer mat, and rushed outside. And what I saw froze me. A large crowd had gathered in front of my classroom. An ambulance was already there. People were moving in panic, and in the middle of it all, someone was lying on a stretcher, blood flowing down from their head. A terrible fear tightened in my chest. Was it the teacher I had left in charge? Yes, it was her. Her eyes closed, her face pale, her head wrapped in bandages. Some people said she had fallen. Others said she had been hit by something, but the truth came from the CCTV footage. And what we saw there was beyond belief. In the video, 6-year-old Catherine lifted a massive iron container with one hand, something that normally takes two grown adults to move. And then she threw it, straight toward the teacher's head. The container brushed past her slightly and crashed into the wall beside her. Everyone said if it had hit directly, she wouldn't have survived. After watching that footage, the entire school fell silent. No one spoke. My colleagues stood frozen. The principal sat down, holding her head in shock. Catherine's father was called in, and when he saw the video, he collapsed into a chair. He said, "I don't understand how this is possible. She's my daughter, but I don't recognize her anymore." That day, the school made its decision. Catherine would be expelled. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake the entire time, replaying that scene again and again in my mind. How could such a small child possess such unnatural strength? My hands trembled. My chest felt heavy, as if something unseen was pressing down on me. I kept thinking, what if that day I had been in that teacher's place? That thought alone was enough to break me. The next morning, I made my final decision. I couldn't continue this job anymore. I went to the school and submitted my resignation. I thought this was the end, but it wasn't. The horror was not over yet. One evening, just after sunset, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Catherine's father standing there. His face filled with worry, something deep, something desperate. In his hand, he was holding a letter. He said, "Ma'am, please don't be angry. I got your address from the school. After requesting many times, I've come to ask you for help." I stood there, silent. Then he said, "My daughter is very sick. She's behaving strangely. In her sleep, she keeps calling your name, screaming, again and again, saying, 'Bring Miss, bring Miss.' She speaks in languages I don't understand, and repeats the same words over and over. She says, 'If Miss doesn't come, I won't be at peace.'" He paused, his voice breaking. "I can't watch her like this anymore." My throat went dry. I was terrified, confused, completely broken mentally. With difficulty, I said, "I'm sorry. I don't have the courage. I don't want to stand in front of her again. I've somehow managed to forget everything. I don't want to go back into it." He kept requesting, again and again, almost begging, asking me to see her just one last time. But I stood there silently, near the door, unable to respond, his words hanging in the air, unanswered. About a month after he left, I heard the news. Catherine was dead. I got the message from one of my colleague friends, the same teacher I had worked with. There was a long pause on the other end of the phone, and I could feel the weight in her voice. All I could say was, "Allah knows what was waiting for her." She told me they were going to attend the funeral and asked me to come along. I said no. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Later, after returning from the funeral, she came to my house. As we were talking, she told me something that sent a chill through my entire body. When we saw Catherine for the last time, something was very wrong. I felt a sudden jolt inside me. She said, "Her coffin. It was so heavy. Even 4 people struggled to carry it. She was just a 6-year-old child. How could that be possible?" Then she paused, and her voice lowered. And the most terrifying part? Her face. It was uncovered. When we looked, her jaw was wide open, her eyes wide, fixed, as if frozen in fear. It felt like, even in her final moment, she had seen something terrifying, something no human should ever see. I couldn't listen anymore. It felt like the air in the room had turned heavy again. I stood up, went to perform ablution, and stood in prayer. And all I could do was pray. Oh Allah, you know who she was. I don't, but you know. You know what held her, what controlled her. I only ask, protect me from it. Protect me from whatever that was. Those 1.5 to 2 months were the most terrifying chapter of my life. And even today, after 8 long years, I have never gone back to teaching. I never returned to that place. I never looked back at that path again, because what I experienced was beyond anything a human mind can truly understand. There was something inside her, something dark, something unseen, something not of this world. And even now, after all these years, I still haven't been able to forget her shadow.